Welcome into the Aftershock. Jamon Moore here with Alex Morgan. A 0-0 draw. The Quakes get a point, but Alex, this is going to be controversial. And I have to empathize, I think, with both sides of the fans on this. There are those who say, hey, this is a smart way to play. Three games in 8 days, missing some attacking players, barely getting back some defensive help, go in there and try to see if you can get away with a point. And there are others who are like, wait a second, there's a 55th minute, second yellow. We should have been going for the jugular here. I kind of agree with both of them. I have to say, I hate to just not pick a side and just argue because, I think it's fun to argue, but both of those things are very valid points tonight, aren't they?
Come on, Jamon. That's what's fun. You need to well, you pick a side so that I can then shoot you down, Jamon.
And then I'll play devil's advocate to the other side.
Here's the side I'm picking, Jamon.
Okay,
I think that the Earthquakes could and should have pushed for more in that game. And here's why. This is a Colorado Rapids team that had lost each of their 6 last Major League Soccer outings. This is a Colorado Rapids team that has not won at home this entire season. This is a Colorado Rapids team that is at the bottom of the MLS table in terms of points per game. This is a Colorado Rapids team that the Earthquakes should be beating at home and on the road, especially when they go down to 10 men early in the second half. This is a game where the Earthquakes should have expected more of themselves. And, I understand this is the end of a difficult road stretch, 3 games in 8 days. Guess what? It is for the Colorado Rapids as well. This is also their 3rd game in this space of a week. Everything that, the Earthquakes struggled with tonight, the Colorado Rapids were also struggling with in terms of, the fitness and the lack of match fitness. And I think the Earthquakes really, missed an opportunity here to make a statement and to, punish a team at the bottom of the table. And we know the Earthquakes can go up and on their day beat anyone at the top of the MLS table. We've seen them do that time and time again, going toe-to-toe with LAFC in Seattle. But in order to get that home playoff spot, what's concerning me is their ability to put away teams at the bottom of their table, their ability to be clinical and to be aggressive and really to go and put these games to bed, because they didn't do that tonight. And you know what? They almost paid for it with that penalty. It took a really big Danielle save to secure the draw.
Yeah, and look, I've seen a couple of comments tonight about how the press needs to go hard against Luchi. Guys, you ask questions in a press conference, you don't make statements. So not going to go hard at Luchi, but I think we will ask thorough questions. So if you're looking for people to go hard at Luchi, then you're not going to have a press conference anymore. I just got news for you. Okay. But I think there are some fair comments. You had 47 minutes to play up a man. You had time to get used to the altitude, and you saw in the second part of the first half, I'd say at least the last 10 minutes, the Quakes actually started pressing. And part of that, I think, is due because we've been told in the past that, that altitude starts to hit around the 20th minute and sometimes goes to the 35th, 40th minute. And then you start to get your legs and start to feel better about it. And right about that time when the Quakes started pressing, I feel like Luchi kind of had this plan of let's conserve our energy. Let's not make sure that we get blown up in the first half. And, let's make sure we get into halftime with, a controlled game. That part I get. I'm kind of okay with the strategy. But if you're going to kind of, sit in a low block, and that is your strategy, which is a fine strategy on the road in MLS, you also need to be able to counterattack. And I felt like outside of a couple chances, there just wasn't enough bite on the counterattack to produce anything.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, Jamon. I'm absolutely fine with the strategy, sitting deep, playing the low block, looking on the counterattack. I think that's what most teams do when they go to Colorado and they play, at altitude in, a difficult environment. I think most teams will sit deeper and then look to find their moments to press and play on the counter. The problem is that the Earthquakes really weren't able to turn on that intensity. They weren't able to create those transitions high up the field. Not enough of them, not in the volume that Luchi Gonzalez would have wanted. And even when they did have opportunities to, switch the ball, send it long, and play directly, there wasn't enough intensity. We didn't see guys like Jeremy Ebobisse, Christian Espinosa really get in many dangerous spots. They looked tired. They played tired. They just played, it looked like they were playing at 75, 80%. They were, making the runs half-heartedly. They weren't attacking the space in the first half the way that they should have. And then in the second half, I think that, when Colorado goes down to 10 men, there could have been a more concerted press forward. And I think they had trouble because they were so, lackadaisical in the first half. They had trouble then turning it on in the second half when they needed to.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I don't think this is a factual statement. I don't think up a man, they were sticking with the counterattacking game plan. I think Colorado started to sit deep, and the Quakes had a difficult time switching out of their mode and into an attacking mode. Not only that, they didn't have the attacking talent off the bench, with Cade Cowell gone, with Nico Chakiris gone, like it's Aseni Buddha and Will Richmond, and Tommy Thompson, came in and played left wing, I think maybe for the second time this season.
Second time, Jamon, I've been counting. Trust me, it hurts a little every time Tommy Thompson.
No, left wing. Left wing. How many times has it happened?
I think
it's the third. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I'm not on every
at least
show,
the third. Either the third or
you've been on every show this season. I have not, so I will take your word for it. I think Ken's kind of made a point here. And by the way, I do think Luchi is a very pragmatic coach. By the way, let's just kind of remember where we started with this particular team. 69 goals given up last season, right? I said in my preseason or one of my preseason articles, if they could improve, got this mini Natter fly or something in front of me here. If they could improve by 30% and still score 50 goals, they would be easily in the playoffs, right? At this rate, I'm concerned that they're going to improve significantly on the defensive side and regress significantly almost on the offensive side. What is it? I think 19 goals right now, through these first 15 or so games. I think we need to see some more attacking bite. And, hopefully, Chris Leach is gearing up for the secondary transfer window. And I know people want to talk about that. And you guys have talked really, really well on the show. But, it's clear at this point that, what they've got right now is going to be insufficient if they want to get into that home playoff spot right now. They're going to need, I think, help at the 10 or one of the 8s. I think they need more bite there. I know Nico Chakiris can bring some of that, and I hate to put someone in front of him. But right now, no matter who you put in there at the left wing, the job's not getting done. They got to produce more out of the left wing.
Jamon, this is a big moment on the Aftershock. I think this is the
You said this the last time I said it.
No, this is the first time. Here's what's different. This is the first time that you have proactively brought up the secondary transfer and unprompted brought up the secondary transfer window and the Earthquakes needing to go out and sign new players. I've been able to corner you before. You've admitted before on the show that the Earthquakes need to sign some players to bolster this offense in the secondary transfer window. But the fact that you're now mentioning it unprompted, I'm going to claim as a mini moral victory here. And you're absolutely right. Look, this is the team that would be significantly different if they had a substitute for Benji Gacanovic in the second half. If they had somebody else other than Tommy Thompson who could come on that left wing and break down that Colorado Rapids low block. It would be significantly different if they had attacking substitutes. The problem is they don't have attacking substitutes. And, all of the substitutions tonight were basically subbing in more defensive players. Even the substitutions, you take out Paul Marie, and I felt like when you take out Paul Marie, you were lacking some of his offensive, ability in his runs and his creations on the right side. Even though, Carlos Akapo, was able to get in behind a couple times, it felt like Paul Marie is the guy who's going to be pushing the tempo more. And so, yeah, they don't have the firepower off the bench. And with that being said, I'm curious, Jamon, if you have any ideas for the kind of player that the Earthquakes should be looking for, because I've had this conversation with Phil before on the show, and now I want you to challenge me and tell me where the Earthquakes should be adding, whether it should be at that left wing position, if you want a dribbler who's going to beat guys 1v1, or if you want another number 10, somebody to compete with Jamir Montero and add more passes, somebody who has the vision, who can distribute the ball and get the ball out wide in the final third, and whether that's, the kind of player you need to unlock this offense.
If I have to pick between the two, I would take the 10. And the reason I would take the 10 is because Montero's contract is kind of coming up soon. And in the worst case, if Leach can't get the millions he's looking for Cade Cowell, after Cade Cowell is the best player in the U20 World Cup, and that's not me thinking that is the data, as I've shared in a couple different tweets. He is the top in goals added, an ASA metric from us at American Soccer Analysis. He's the top in the tournament, the entire tournament, across any team from the attacking side. 3 goals in 3 games. Didn't even play the first game. He could have more had he. If you can't move him for, let's say, at least $5 million after this performance, then you're probably going to stick with him and see if he can really kind of bring that energy for the second half.
That's a price tag, Jamon. $5 million.
Well, hang on. We know that
for a player who has how many goals this season?
We know they got 4 last year, and he wasn't that much better last year. We were talking for huge stretches of the season, like what's happening to Cade Cowell, and and then looks like we're getting Luchi right now, so we're going to go over to that.
All right, good evening, everyone. Let's get started with some questions. Let's go first with Jamon Moore.
Unmuted.
Hey, Luchi. This is a really interesting kind of dynamic to this particular game. Your third game in 8 days, playing at altitude, obviously tired, but at the same time, getting to go up a man in the middle of that game, which you wouldn't have, probably expected as part of your game plan. Just felt like you weren't able to take advantage of that in the moments. Where do you sit with this one? Are you happy for the point, or are you just unsatisfied that you didn't have more bite in the attack tonight? Thank you.
Muted.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. If you look at the body of work over the 2 away games, 4 points in 2 games, 2 shutouts, I would say it's positive, right? Definitely circumstance where we could get the winning goal. We did push at the end, but we wanted to do it in an organized way. We had 5 shots in the last 10 minutes. 0 went on target, right? They were blocked or they went slightly wide. Akapo gets that open header. So at the end of the day, I thought we did push in a very smart and organized way at the end to try to win. Because at the end of the day, you did see in transition how dangerous they were. They got the PK because of isolation in the back, and you have speed with Barrios, and it becomes unpredictable, hard to control. So I think if you look at the body of work of the 2 games and you look at kind of the circumstances of this game where they put us under pressure, I thought we adjusted much better with our defensive shape to get pressure on their center backs, deny the diagonals, and defend much better. And I thought we were much more in the game the second half, with or without the red card. So, look, proud of the guys. Daniel stepping it up when in the PK and the game moments and the run of play. But collectively, the team put a great effort and mentality with grit to defend and to earn points. We want to sum points. We want to build with points, and you can't win all these games. I would have loved 6 points. That would have been ideal, but in reflection, I think it's positive. We'll grab that, and now we get to go to home and play a really good Philly team and try to earn maximum points.
Next up, Alex Morgan.
Hi, Luchi. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm curious what you thought about the chance creation, whether you were happy with the types of chances being created, the volume of chances being created, and what you're looking for beyond just the XG numbers. What you're looking for to determine how you make up your mind about a performance like this.
Yeah, look, it's another good question in terms of analyzing the game, comparing the results of the performance. We always want to perform well first. That's in our DNA as a club, and that's in our values, right? Like, we want to have a plan and make a better plan and perform. We want to make our family and our fans proud of the way we act and play. And so, we definitely want to attack. We want to create chances. We're a pretty good XG team. But if you look at the shot count tonight, I think we were even on shots, 14, 15 shots, both teams, but we didn't have enough on target. I would say we had 1 or 2 maybe on target, and that's not a good percentage of shots on target that are going to allow these things to bounce. And credit to Colorado to block. We had to do our own blocking first half and defend, especially on those set pieces. And but I definitely know we're going to recognize in video some ways that we can. Is it the extra pass? Is it just focusing on the shot to beat the defender and the keeper? Is just focusing on putting it on target? So we want to be better in our efficiency, that's for sure, and turn those shots into actual shots on target and actual goals.
And now we'll switch to Spanish and take a question from Carlos Lucy.
Luchi, buenas noches. Yo creo que más allá de, obviamente estás hablando de todas las cosas que se pueden corregir y mejorar, que eso creo que siempre existe, ¿no? Pero muy positivo venir de la carretera y llevarte 4 puntos de 6 posibles y seguir sumando, ¿no?
No, es lo que estaba diciendo en respecto a 2 viajes seguidos contra 2 equipos fuertes. No estoy hablando de la tabla porque en MLS la tabla todavía para mí no significa nada porque todos los equipos son fuertes. Pero ganar 4 puntos de 6 fuera de casa es importante, es sumar y avanzar y seguir sumando, ¿no? Ahora vamos a casa y vamos a pelear los 3 puntos en casa y esta es una liga muy, muy difícil fuera de casa y para mí positivo, vamos a agarrar eso. Y mira, 0 goles en contra en 2 partidos seguidos, y especialmente de ida, crédito a Daniel, crédito a los jugadores colectivamente defender y sacrificar para defender el arco.
All right, thank you guys. We're running short on time again, so I'm going to do my best to bring out Carlos Akapo here in a couple minutes.
Am I done? Oh, that was early. Okay. En español, para hacer una respuesta de la parte de atacar, ¿no? Hicimos 11, 12 disparos y 0 en el arco, ¿no? O sea que esas cosas queremos seguir mejorando para el XG, para que el gol entra. Es para que los disparos concentramos que sean en el target, hacer que el arquero trabaja, buscar de repente un pase extra para una mejor oportunidad del arco. O sea que cosas que queremos seguir mejorando. Gracias, buenas noches. Good night.
All right, bringing in Alex Morgan. If anyone, in the chat wants to help us out with anything extra that came out in Spanish, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks to everyone who often does the translation for us. Alex, 6 of one, half dozen of another. I think he might be surprised to find out there was actually 0 shots on target, but as a data guy, shots on target actually is meaningless. People don't know that, but it's absolutely completely meaningless. But
0 shots on target.
What is true is that you're not going to win if you put 0 shots on target. You can only draw.
It does feel a little misleading tonight because they hit the woodwork twice. Which is it feels unusual. With that being said, I still think it's clear that there are issues with the chances that were being created tonight, and I'm not sure I'm entirely satisfied with his answer. It didn't feel like he had a particularly revealing insight on the spot. But we're going to go to Carlos Akapo.
Who is making his first appearance since being out due to hamstring injury back in April, I believe. So let's go ahead and kick it off with a question from Alex Morgan.
Hi, Carlos. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's good to speak to you. Glad that you're healthy and playing again.
Thank you.
I'm curious how you're processing this one. It feels like a game, that you might look back on and think these are 2 points left on the table, given that, Colorado went down to 10 men and, are at the bottom of the Western Conference table right now. How does this feel to you? Does this feel like 2 points that were lost to you tonight? And, what do you think about the, chance creation and the way that you were attacking?
Te lo digo en español.
Te pregunta él que...
Sí, no, entendido. Pienso que no son 2 puntos perdidos porque ellos tuvieron un penalti. Entonces pienso que nosotros tenemos muchas oportunidades para meter gol, dos palos, mi ocasión de última de cabeza que también salió cerca. Entonces, bueno, por puntuación sí, pero ellos tuvieron un penalti claro, ya digo, y y puede ser que nos hubiéramos ido perdiendo, incluso habiendo jugado la segunda mitad mejor.
Yeah, I don't really see it as we let 2 points go away because they did have a penalty opportunity in their favor. Plus, we did have 2 really good shots that hit the post, and then I did personally have a really good header opportunity too. So I think it's more of credit to our work that we did to tie the game. Again, they did have a penalty shot which was blocked by our team, so we were able to rescue that point. Next question, Jamon Moore.
Unmuted.
Hey, Carlos. Good to see you back. Hopefully you're feeling healthy. I wanted to ask you, as a player coming into MLS for the first time, have you had experience at altitude like that before? And, just coming from a player's perspective and how the other players were reacting, how much of the tonight was the altitude a factor playing, 3 games in 8 days for the team? Or did you feel pretty strong coming in? Thank you.
Muted.
In my opinion, in myself, I felt the altitude, but 2 maybe is because I was 1 month out, and then maybe it's possible for that. But for the team, I think felt the altitude. Yeah, and but maybe when they go with one player less, maybe we went more aggressive, and the altitude didn't affect us. But I think that the first time maybe nos sentimos un poco la altitud.
We felt it more.
We felt it more.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you, Jamon. Do any of you two have one more question before we switch over to the Spanish portion, guys?
Oh yeah, if I
Unmuted.
could jump in,
Muted.
that would be lovely. Yeah, thanks. I'm curious how you guys have been, thinking about the set pieces, because in a game like today, where you're pushing and pushing and pushing, you're getting lots of corners going forward. I'm curious how you felt about those. We saw the Benji headered goal the other week. I'm curious if you're satisfied with the way that those are going.
Yes, we have a lot of satisfaction. Sorry, because it's the set pieces are one thing that training a lot in the week, and then it's another ¿cómo se dice? Weapon, another weapon for attack, and then we have estamos muy contentos. We are happy for that, for the set pieces, and then we need score more goals in set pieces, and we are very happy.
All right, let's now take a question from Carlos Yusis in Spanish.
Tocayo, qué máquina con el inglés, máquina. Oye, primero que nada, pues felicidades por el regreso. Yo sé que era algo que te tenía, ¿no? Esa sensación de que querías regresar en un partido complicado en la carretera, con la altitud, como estabas hablando, pero te deja buenas sensaciones. Además, en una semana donde hay 3 partidos y se sacan 4 puntos de 6 posibles en carretera.
Sí, ha sido una semana buena. Podríamos haberlo hecho mejor, siempre se puede mejorar. Siempre pensamos en mejorar. Sabemos que esta semana ha sido muy, muy buena, porque ya te digo, hemos concedido solo un gol en los últimos minutos, que fue contra Dallas, y nos vamos muy contentos, porque es un momento que hemos tenido de 3 partidos que hemos sabido mejorar. Esa cosa de goles en contra. Entonces, pienso que tenemos que llevarlo para la próxima semana y en casa contra Filadelfia conseguir los 3 puntos, seguir igual como lo estamos haciendo en casa y a seguir escalando posiciones en la tabla.
All right, thank you, Carlos, and thank you, everyone. Good night.
All right, let me get Alex back in here. And we're going to remove out. There he is. All right, so I just want to start this, and I've never done this on a show before, Alex, but I'm going to see if I can pull this off. I'm going to stand, and I'm going to... I love Carlos Akapo. Man, that just, that takes guts. That takes guts with the amount of English that he knows. This is the 3rd time we've gotten a chance to talk to him. He comes in and he just takes that chance in front of everyone and tries to do his best to at least understand the question in English and then just try to answer it directly without a translation. But then, to try to answer them in English, I huge respect for Carlos Akapo.
And I think that is a great example right there of why, we don't just go and shout at Luchi Gonzalez or tell him how bad the team was in the press conference, because fundamentally, these are conversations and these are repeated dialogues that we're having with them. And we want everyone in the press conference to be comfortable, sharing what they think about the game with us, be comfortable sharing, the way that they're processing it with us, be comfortable, just like that, willing to take, chances and try out your English. So much credit for Akapo there. And, I think that he's definitely a class act, as everyone's saying here, Christian, and everyone can acknowledge. It's that was a great example of, why we approach these press conferences the way we do and why we're trying to ask questions where we feel like we're getting insights and we feel like are helping us understand the game better, because we're here to shout about what happened on the pitch. We're here that's why we have this show. This show is the space to do that, but the press conferences are not the space to do that.
That's right. Okay, well said, Alex. So let's get on with the analysis here. Again, the comments are going to come in here, and people are going to feel differently. Let me turn off that banner at the end and continue sharing, some of the comments here. So feel free. For those who are not aware with what's going on with Mensa, and maybe you missed the last Seattle game show. The quick thing to bring you up to speed is that, he returned to the team, I would say a day or two ago. He was suspended, not just from games, but also from practices. And that's probably why he did not play tonight, is because he hasn't played with the team, hasn't practiced with the team other than probably yesterday, I would imagine, in over a week. Some sort of team suspension, and he had to apologize to the team for it. And we do not know the reasons, but that's what we were given. And
to add to that, I think that there were other punishments,
and there are other elements. That's right. There are other elements to that, and it was something that he needed to apologize to the team for. So right now, I think tonight was probably more because he hadn't been with the team. And maybe there was a concern there would be some fitness issue with the altitude and things like that, having not really practiced in over a week. And so I think that's pretty much what's going on with Mensa and why he didn't play tonight. I was optimistic we might see him in a 5-man back line if the team was protecting the lead at the end of the game. But since there was no lead, Luchi did stick with the 4 in the back, Alex, tonight. And, one indication at least that he was attempting to go for it and not really trying to stay content with the point. He mentioned 5 shots there, toward the end in the last few minutes. But as we've said before, there were none on frame and still pretty low, expected goals, even, managing the number of shots they did, equaling Colorado tonight just doesn't feel sufficient because there really just was no bite in the attack. Are you concerned at all about Christian Espinoza? We haven't really seen the same production out of Christian Espinosa now over the last 3 games. Tonight, he felt tired. That's my perception. What's yours?
I'm absolutely not concerned about Christian Espinosa. Christian Espinosa is still in the running for MVP of Major League Soccer this season. He still has, easily reaching double-digit goals, and his assist tally is high as well. The concern is not Christian Espinosa. The concern is that everything needs to go through Christian Espinosa, and that the Quakes don't have any firepower on the left, and they don't have enough creativity in the middle. And at times they're not connecting Jeremy Ebobisse well enough. If anything, I thought Christian Espinosa in the first half was getting involved a fair amount. And the problem was in the second half, when you're right, I think you saw his legs start to go a little bit. He was not winning the ball high up the field or chasing those through balls as much as we've seen him do before. So Greg's right. The concern is a lack of depth. I wouldn't even call it a slump at this stage. I think that's an overreaction in this stage. And I think
how can you slump if you're not even getting the same level of actions and chances, and you're not pushing the back line and really kind of pressing the situation? And I get it. Again, we're at altitude, 3 games in 8 days. But, he does look tired, whether that is fatigue from the schedule, whether that is fatigue from the pressure and, the amount of success he had early in the season and maybe feeling some of that.
Jamon, I would be tired too if I were carrying the entire team on my back.
There you go.
For the whole season. Christian Espinosa is the last person to blame in this situation. If you're looking for players who need to be adding more on the offense, we've already discussed Jamir Montero and Benji Nikanovic. Jamir Montero, what really disappointed me tonight was just he has the tendency, and every single time he gets the ball, his first touch is always sideways or backwards. He always collects the ball and then sideways or backwards and lays it off. And then he wants to slow the game down, control the game, and then maybe once everything feels settled, he'll look for those balls in behind. But he had one tonight where he was legitimately in on goal. He was, long ball in behind. He was, got to it ahead of the 2 center backs for Colorado. And instead of taking a long touch in front of the defenders, instead of trying to break away on goal like Christian Espinosa would have done, he turned to the side and laid it off to Jeremy Ebobisse and gave Colorado the time to get everyone back behind the ball. He was not pushing forward in that situation, not trying to go for goal, not trying to get behind Colorado's back line. So I think the Earthquakes need another option in there, another midfielder who will do that. Because look, Jamir Montero, we know, is a key part of this offense, but he can't do everything, and he's not able to push the tempo the way that the Earthquakes have needed this season.
Yeah, and one of the things that's I think a bit different with Montero is that he's being asked to kind of double with Yule as double 8s. And so he has to mostly stick to the left side. He has to come back and support in the build out. And those were things that sometimes he did last year, but I think it was a little bit more free roaming. But here's the thing, right? If you want more attack, it's easy to say, hey, let Montero be able to go up there and play as a 10, or let Jackson go up there and play as a 10. But now you might be getting in shootout games. Now you might be getting in 3-3 games, higher variance outcomes that feel a little bit more like last season. And you see what happens when this team with this level of talent tends to get into those situations. The one difference from last year, or 2 differences anyway, I would say, really Jonathan Mensah and Grezzo. Those are the big differences. And then if Daniel can continue to play at the level he's shown over the last 3 games, sure, he might be able to knock down a few goals as well. But is it worth it? When this team is sitting in 5th place, is it worth it to play more risky on the attacking side for the entertainment value of getting more goals? Or, hey, this team is sitting in 5th place. It may not be the prettiest soccer all the time, but right now it's fairly effective soccer. Where do you stand right now?
Jamie, can you pull up the playoff odds? Because at this point, I think it's almost a lock that the Earthquakes are going to make the playoffs. They have the quality.
Sure.
And
hang on one second.
You're
getting from 538. I mean, I'll do my own prediction, update here.
Yeah, but look,
with my model here. But according to the 538 model, now it says 80% to make the playoffs, 72% to make it free and clear without the play-in game.
Yeah,
2% to win MLS Cup, which is actually up 1%, believe it or not, from the last time from like 3 games ago. So you're right. It might not be exciting soccer, but these points are actually getting them more secured into
not
a
my
playoff
point.
position.
That's not my point. My point is the opposite. My point is that they should expect to make the playoffs. I think that they have.
Well, I think they expect to make the
room.
playoffs.
They have room to take those risks, is what I'm saying. They have the points in the bank. They have the quality. I think in games like this, they should be really pushing for that home playoff spot. And I think they should be playing more risky because they know that at this point they're a good bet for the playoffs. I don't think
even if they
have
give
to play
up more goals, are you
conservatively
okay with that?
Even if they have to give up more goals, I think that's a good, risk to take. I think that that's a risk they should be taking, and I think that's a risk that the fans would appreciate and would help build excitement around this team, heading into the backstretch of this season. I think that's absolutely a risk they should be taking.
Vapor Terra with really good points here. I was looking ahead at the schedule as well. There's some really important games coming. Philadelphia at home. Oh my goodness. If you get out with a point against Philadelphia, I know they're not top of the East this season, but if you get out with a point against Philadelphia at home, is that a success as good as Philadelphia has been over the past couple seasons?
No, the Earthquakes should be getting 3 points.
Okay,
at home,
fair.
Jamon.
All right,
the Earthquakes. I think generally the theme here is that we need to be setting our expectations for this team higher, and they need to be delivering more. And look, I think that there's gonna be a tough patch. I think that they're gonna inevitably face challenges for these next few weeks because of the lack of depth. While Cade Cowell is at the U20 World Cup, while Nico Shakiris is at the U20 World Cup, they're going to be losing, I think, a few more players, Miguel Trauco, for international duty later in June. So that's something to watch for as well, is that I think Jamir Montero might also be in the mix for international duty. And so that's an interesting conversation that the Quakes are going to have to navigate, whether they're asking players to stay with the team in order to bridge that gap and get them through into July. That's something that is not completely off the table. We know that before in the past, they've had conversations with, critical players who are getting called up for international friendlies about whether it's the right decision for them to go or not, and what their decision is. And so I think that's a concern. And I also think that, I'm finally realizing, maybe I underappreciated it before, how important Cade Cowell is to this offense, because he's clearly lacking an end product. We know all of Cade's shortcomings inside and out. We know he lacks the aerial ability. We know that he's he's not got the finishing. He's not got the left foot. He's not good at beating player. We know all of that. But what he is and what he does offer that I don't think I fully appreciated before is just the fact that he's a handful. Just the fact that he causes problems for the opponent, that he is always making a run, that he's always pressing, even if he's not necessarily pressing the best way, and sometimes lets the ball in behind. He's always causing trouble, and the opponents are concerned about him. Whether it's warranted or not, they are defending him very, very carefully and very thoughtfully, and that's sucking a lot of attention away from Christian Espinosa and Jeremy Ebobisse. Cade Cowell is an attention hog on the field. Just because he's a bulldozer, he's gonna create battles, and even if he doesn't win those battles, he is causing problems, and that is something that I think raises the intensity for the Earthquakes. He is a guy who I think would have been helpful in a game like tonight because he raises the intensity, because he knows how to step it up and he knows how to push when the Earthquakes need to push. So I don't think I've fully appreciated that before. And I think that's something that's really obvious when he's playing at the U20 level and when that physical difference is just ginormous. And that's the reason why I think the Earthquakes, he's so important to the Earthquakes. Whether that justifies a $5 million price tag,
they're going to get $4 million last year off of a 3-goal, in 3-game performance in the World Cup, and maybe adding to that tally. If he scores another 2 more games and the U.S. get in the final, if you were getting $4 million last year, shouldn't you be getting at least $5 million now?
I think here's the thing. I think
it was Rhymes or somebody were interested in. There's
a larger sample size now. I think what his limits are.
We
know what his capabilities are.
We know it, but Alex, you're assuming that teams in Europe are smart, and I can tell you right now, from being around a lot of data analysts in Europe in a Slack, they don't think teams in Europe are very smart. So, while there are the Brightons of the world, while there are, teams that are playing, more like MLS and investing in data analysis and being very, very careful about certain players, other teams buy players.
Jamie, don't need the data to tell you that.
You should go to Chelsea. You should be going to Chelsea for $20 million right now on the hype alone, right? Because that's the stupidest type of stuff Chelsea does.
All you need to do is call up any San Jose Earthquakes fan, and they will all tell you all of this. This is the most basic.
We know that, but that's true about every fan base. You know the problem with every one of your players. But do other teams know that problem with your players? Will somebody see a 19-year-old? Is he 19 now? I always get confused. A 19-year-old Cade Cowell and say, hey, that kid's good. We can make him great. We're going to invest on that player right now, whether it's a development side or whether it's somebody who wants to use the hype from the U20 World Cup. Look, somebody out there has to want Cade Cowell for $5 million.
If Ricardo Pepi can garner $20 million, then I think I have to cede the point to you. But what I will say is I think
my goodness, Ricardo Pepi, Mike, don't even get me started.
What this means, Jamon, is that there's an opportunity. We should be starting a consultancy. We should be getting on the line with all
I say this in an ASA. I say this in ASA all the time, but actually
we could save clubs millions of dollars on bad deals.
I can fix the LA Galaxy, but they're the LA Galaxy, so I'm not going to, right? So, there's all kinds of reasons to not fix clubs in soccer. It's because you want other teams that are making the right investments to be successful. All right. Yes. Chelsea catching strays. No, fully intentional. By the way, I don't hate Chelsea. I just think they're really, really super dumb at the way that they spend money. So look, here's kind of the situation. The Quakes are going to have to deal a little bit with a salary cap issue. So one of the reasons that it's important to be able to line up a sale for a Cade Cowell, or even if you were able to get, another Benji Kikanovic offer out of Almeida at this point. One of the reasons to do that is so that you can translate that into GAM and be able to buy down any player you would go after to replace them. So I'm going to guarantee you one thing. The Quakes front office is smarter than the Quakes front offices that everyone is used to. I know a little bit about what they're doing on the data side, and able to have good conversations with almost everyone in the front office. They're competent at this. They are not going to let Cade Cowell go or Benji Kikanovic go without a plan to replace them. I can just tell you that right now. So that's what's going on. If Cade sells, you can bet in the secondary transfer window there will be a replacement that also comes in.
I mean,
and the GAM that's used means that could be a DP level player that can be bought down, within the TAM range. So I'm not saying that they are. I'm saying that they would have the ability to do more by selling Cade for a good amount like that.
I thought the same thing last season, Jamon, and then they sold Francisco Calvo, and there were crickets for 2 months in terms of the transfer spending. But I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm willing to believe that Chris Leach has learned from that. I'm willing to believe that this front office is smarter and more prepared than they were last year. Now it's time to show it. All the pressure is on them. I think that I'm curious what Luchi Gonzalez is looking for in this transfer window, because we haven't heard him talk about new adjustments and new additions yet. So hopefully that's something we will be able to get to talk to him about soon.
Yeah. Arky with a good comment here. I bet the data team is feeling better about the Daniel deal now. Wink, wink, Arky. Yes, they are. Okay. Let's see. So there's all kinds of great comments here. I love everything that's coming in. We need a Leach press conference. Well, what we've kind of learned about GMs, Chris Leach included, is that those press conferences don't tend to come until after the window. They don't tend to like to ask questions about the window during the window, unless there is something to actually say about a signing. So you can probably cancel the Chris Leach press conference at this point. You're unlikely to be able to get any answers about that. But Alex, I like the idea about Diego Luna. You and I have both been out there about this. I think, like, for me, that impactful move would be in that Montero type position. My concern is that a player like Diego Luna is going to add a lot to the attack and take away what Montero gives you from a defensive side of things, which might get you more goals, but you might be giving up more goals. And you've already said you would take that trade-off. So let me ask you straight up. If you had the chance to get Diego Luna, I'll put a price tag on it. $2 million in GAM.
$2 million in GAM?
You're
saying $5 million? You're getting $5 million for Cade Cowell, $2 million for Luna?
No, in GAM. In GAM. That might mean it's $5 million in the open market, but in GAM, $2 million. That's about right. That's about the translation, right?
Yeah.
So I'm giving them the same benefit of the doubt here. Would you move $2 million in GAM? Let's say you sold Cade Cowell for $5 million. Okay. So you sold Cade for $5 million. Now you can translate that into GAM. Would you go get Diego Luna and be able to try to make him your 10 of the future, put him side by side with Nico Chakiris?
Absolutely. As long as you are also signing another left winger, I think the Quakes need to be net positive in the number of players they're adding in this transfer window. There is no swap that should be happening. There is no Cade Cowell sale bringing in Diego Luna to replace him. I think, first of all, that's bad because they play really well together. We've seen
I want them together.
But
I'm trying to think,
Cup.
how else do you get GAM to be able to make that move?
I think Diego Luna is actually works as a signing with Cade Cowell. I don't know if you would justify the $2 million.
You think $2 million is ridiculous for Luna?
Not there. I don't think $2 million is ridiculous.
I don't
for
either.
Luna.
And I don't think $2 million in GAM. To be clear, $2 million in GAM. I don't think would be ridiculous at all. And that's a huge investment for the future.
Look, the bottom line is that the Earthquakes need to be adding two pieces to the offense. They shouldn't be looking for swaps. If they're gonna sell Cade Cowell or Benji Kikanovic, they need to then be adding 2 or 3 pieces on top of that. And look, I would rather, at this stage, try to sell Benji than try to sell Cade, because tonight was another performance where Benji Kikanovic, nothing is working for him.
I think that's going to be a harder thing to do.
And it's clearly going to be a harder thing to do. But if I were Chris Leach, that would be the sort of ideal.
Let's say he can't. Let's say he can't get. Let's say that Almeida comes back and says, "Hey, he hasn't looked that great. I'll still take him off you, but it's for $1 million." Is that? I don't think that's going to give you enough GAM to be able to make an impactful move on top of what is already sitting out there still in the Quakes. So if you look at Colinet, let me just plug Colinet and Iyer's spreadsheet. If you look at Colinet and Iyer's spreadsheet, I believe, I could be wrong, that the Quakes are about $1 million, 1.1, 1.2 under the cap. Someone can go double check that maybe and throw it into the chat. I think it's about 1.1, 1.2. So that's about how much cap space you have to play with right here. That's why it's important to be able to have the GAM in that type of case, because I think the Quakes would have to be able to get players under the cap to not go too high. And Benji for $1 million, to me, doesn't feel. It feels like, is it a steal? Sure. Does that let you replace him? I don't think so.
Unless
not with the type of player that people are talking about they want.
Unless Diego Luna somehow maintains homegrown status and is able to save on the cap that way. Do you have any
That's
idea
a good
what that would
question.
Work?
He's considered homegrown for RSL, isn't he?
He played for the Earthquakes Academy, so
but he also played for RSL Academy. So the Quakes would need. Can you someone double check if he's.
He did not play for Real Salt Lake Academy, so he was an Earthquakes homegrown.
I thought he played for RSL Arizona.
No, he played for Barca Academy, Arizona,
which is
I don't think is affiliated with RSL.
Affiliated. Okay, all right.
So, and look,
that's interesting. I think they bought the homegrown rights from the Quakes, so I think they hold homegrown rights. Just like the equivalent would be that I'm not trying to click here. I'm trying to unclick. The equivalent would be, remember how the Quakes went out and they were able to get a homegrown rights from the Vancouver Whitecaps for, sorry, his name just skipped my mind here for a second.
Baldissimo?
Baldissimo, thank you. So for Baldissimo, the Quakes were able to trade, and they own the homegrown rights now from Vancouver for Baldissimo. So you can trade for homegrown rights. That is possible.
So that is one way
homegrown, then that would allow them pay a lot in GAM, but then be able to bring him in potentially under the cap. It might take a little bit of approval from the league in this particular case, but the fact he's played in the academy before should actually bolster the Quakes case to be able to make that type of trade. And the fact that they've now done it for Baldissimo gives them precedence.
And look, Jamon, I'm not going to pretend to know how to solve this GAM issue. I think that there are people way more qualified than I am. Number one, Colin Etnier. Number two, Chris Leach, who has proven again and again that he knows how to make intra-league transactions happen between the Jamiro Montero, Jeremy Obobasi, Jonathan Mensah deal. This is his bread and butter. So if you're looking for intra-league deal, that's where, what he knows how to do. I'm curious though, if he has, the ability to, search more for young players in the foreign markets, and whether he's willing to look in South America, whether he's willing to go out on a limb, because that's not something we've necessarily seen him prioritize before.
Yeah, well, that's something that, again, having a data team is supposed to help you identify that. Having a coach, a scouting staff is supposed to help you identify that. Video analysts like they have as well. Like, there's a team. Part of the reason I'm sure that they made the Daniel move, and I think we confirmed this with Chris Leach in our preseason interview, was because they brought this back office set of resources that they've put together, and they identified out of a lot of players. They narrowed it down to a set of players that they could have club negotiations with, and eventually, were able to bring in Daniel. And here's my concern. My concern is, can you get a functional left wing for under 1 million? Yes, but we're not seeing enough production come out of the left wing. So functional, it needs to be better output than what you're getting from Cade Cowell at a bare minimum. Otherwise, why do the deal at all, other than just to bring in the GAM for Cade Cowell and have that in your coffers to be able to make other moves? But can you get a functional left wing? Yes. Is that good enough for, I think, where this team needs to be aiming right now? I don't think functional is good enough.
But I do just want to make sure we're framing this in the right way, because I don't think the Quakes should be thinking about trade-offs so much. I think that they should be looking at adding pieces. If you add a guy like Diego Luna, I don't care what the defensive issues he has are, because you can always bring on Jamiro Montero as a substitute in late game situations if you need to defend. If you need to attack, you can bring on Diego Luna. If you need a goal, you can have him on the field. If you need to defend, you can have a guy like Jamiro Montero, and who's probably more defensively solid in that number 10 position. So I think the Quakes need to be adding in this transfer window, and the mentality that maybe they've had in the past about trying to balance this budget very, very finely is not the right attitude heading into this summer.
Can we get Colin on an episode during the transfer window? Look, Colin is the toughest guy in the world to work out his calendar on the East Coast, and a number of challenges, has an incredibly challenging job schedule and everything like that. I would love to get Colin on an episode. I've been asking Colin, can we get you on an episode? We will continue to try to get Colin on an episode. Trust me, we are on that. Okay, so we're coming up toward the hour now, Alex. And, for a 0-0 away game in Colorado. And by the way, we held true to our form. When people say you can trust that Jamon and Alex and an away game in Colorado are going to be the guys that are going to be on the press conference. Literally, that's been said to Luchi directly about us. We held our end up of the bargain. So yes, you and I are the ones here for a Colorado 0-0 game that are on the Aftershock and trying to answer all the questions from the fans tonight.
I love games like these, Jamon, because sometimes it feels like
we just do whatever we want to do.
And it's also just nice to have to be observers, because it feels like if we weren't here, would this game have even happened? If we weren't here in the press conference, what would have happened? It's nice to know that we are going to be the ones, and everybody I appreciate everyone in the comments as well for being here tonight, because games like these are really, really, I think a core part of the Major League Soccer experience. Games that might otherwise just like fade in memory and just like into the broader entropy of the world we have now immortalized in this show.
Here's one of the things that I think I'm trying to wrap my head around right now, Alex, is that usually what happens in the secondary window, if you're going to get an intra-league big GAM transaction, the only way that's going to happen is because there's some team at the bottom of the table that you can just count them out and there's no way they're coming back. But take a look at the table right now. Take a look at the Western Conference table. The Galaxy are back into last place. Is that, am I seeing this correctly? Like they fell back into last place? Colorado.
Technically, the Colorado is still worse on points per game, Jamon.
Oh, points per game. Got it. So the Galaxy have 2 games in hand, so they might probably catch that back up again. But if you look at that, you got 17, 13, 12 at the bottom of the table, 19. The Quakes have 23. Like it feels like, and take a look at where Sporting Kansas City is, right? They were starting to move up. On the back of some pretty good performances. The Galaxy won away at RSL. It's really hard to say that there's any team, at least in the Western Conference, that's completely out of it. And even in the East, it's a little bit. So I find it hard to believe there's going to be a bunch of deals out there because teams are like, yeah, we're not going to make the playoffs. Let's stockpile a bunch of GAMs so we can start to make some moves. I'm a little bit concerned there's going to be actually very much in the way of intra-league moves going on in this particular window. Any thoughts from you on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right, Jamon. And that's, one of the reasons why I mentioned we want to see, Chris Leach look into the foreign markets a little bit more, because I think there, are probably more deals to be found abroad. I think it's going to be difficult to find a young, super impactful player who's going to come and is going to improve on a guy like Cade Cowell on the left wing, or a guy like Jamiro Montero in the center. Because you know what? Jamiro Montero was the best player for that position on the market not very long ago. And Cade Cowell, I think a lot of teams in Major League Soccer would love to be trading for him. And so I think it's going to be difficult to find those upgrades and find guys who are going to, add a ton of value in Major League Soccer, who I just don't think, I don't think they're going to be available this summer. And that's why I think you can find young, undervalued players in foreign markets. If there are, players like who could add value in Major League Soccer, I think they're going to cost a pretty penny.
Yeah. And so Miami might be out of it, but if they're getting Messi, then, they're going to be the talk of the league anyway. So
yeah, they're going to need to sell everyone else to make that happen.
Well, according to some of the pseudo journalists out there, they think that in MLS, they think there's a really good chance that he's going to end up at Inter Miami. Well, I'm less optimistic about
so
that.
Either way, I think Messi ending up at Miami is good from a transfer perspective for the Quakes, because either it means that Miami need to have a fire sale to fund it, or it means that MLS is changing the rules in a way that could give the Quakes some nice cap space to open up. I that's my reading. Is that how you'd read it as well?
Yeah, I think that's potentially the case. Satish with a good point here. Like, Montero came in. Like Montero, arguably the MVP of this particular team last year. It just feels like he's not a fit for Luchi's style of 8, in the fact that he can't produce what he was producing in the attack and still be able to handle the defensive responsibilities that he needs to handle under Luchi. I think it's just a different set of responsibilities that kind of only accentuates his defensive side and not enough of his offensive side. And I think that's a system fit right now. Might the Quakes be able to help Jamon Montero find a team that can actually look good on him again?
Yeah, I think that's the possibility. I don't think the Earthquakes should be looking for that, though. I don't think that the Quakes should be looking to trade Jamon Montero. Again, I don't think the Earthquakes should be looking to offload anyone in this window unless they have a really, really solid deal that they can't refuse. I think they should be looking to add pieces, and the only players who I'd be okay with, departing, who I wouldn't have major concerns about is really Benji Kikanovich and maybe Cade Cowell.
So, as always, fans, you've seen a bit tonight of what we can bring. If you really want to be able to hear all of our hot takes, the hottest takes can only be found in the Quakes Epicenter Slack. For $5 a month, you get access to that Slack. And also early access to all the articles that we do also at Quakes Epicenter. Hey, one of the things that we know is, hey, we're largely a video format these days. We don't put out as many articles because we provide a lot of these videos as well. But if you appreciate what we do, consider at least putting in for $2 a month. And if you want access to that patron Slack, $5 a month. And if you're really, really generous and you just love it, love what we do, and you want to support, independent soccer coverage of the San Jose Earthquakes, but with people who will give it to you straight, at the same time, have a connection with the club and are respected by the club as well. So you can support us all the way up to $15 per month. And just to let you know, how are we going to use that money? Well, we have Portland, two of Portland away games. I'm hoping to attend at least one of them, either the Leagues Cup or that requires an overnight stay in Portland. Last year I went up to Vancouver and was able to go up to Vancouver, another overnight stay. But this year, Alex, I think one of the things that we want to do is not just provide coverage at the Cali Classico, but also the potential for the playoffs in this 3-game playoff format. And the Quakes now at 80% to be able to make the playoffs. It feels like maybe we should save up some funds for some playoff travel.
Yeah, see, here's the problem. The problem is that Jamon has a monopoly on the Pacific Northwest. So he gets to go to the Vancouver games and the Seattle games and the Portland games.
The problem is you came back and they didn't play enough games down in LA while you were there.
Yeah. No. We're hoping to be able, for the playoff, especially with the new format where they're playing 3 legs. We're going to need the support to try to get out to all of those games because we're not missing them. That's the bottom line. The first Earthquakes, playoff appearance in a few years is going to be worth a lot of attention and a lot of coverage. So we're super grateful to everyone like Brian, who's been supporting for a long time, and new people are joining the Patreon community all the time. New people are joining the Patreon Slack every week. Some
new names in the Slack recently, and it's been great to get some fresh faces in there. Or fresh avatars, maybe.
Yeah, and so we'd love to have you if you've been a viewer of the show for a while and haven't thought about making the jump yet. We'd really love to have you.
All right. So, Alex, it's been a good evening, on the show. The Quakes get, I think, you could say an important point. Certainly if they had gone into Colorado and had gotten away with nothing, that would have been a disappointment given their position in the table, but they've split the points either through losses or through draws, and have not gotten a win at home. And the Quakes, keep that streak alive by getting a point tonight. They still sit 5th in the Western Conference, but tied on points with FC Dallas, only 1 goal behind in goal differential for the 4th position. I ran the simulation after the Seattle game, and right now the Quakes are on that bubble between 4th and 5th. Like, it's really close in terms of the predicted finishing position. But the model does not like FC Dallas, and they lost tonight against Nashville at home. The model does like Vancouver, and so that's going to be interesting when the Quakes get that away game with Vancouver. They still got to go away to FC Dallas, away to Vancouver. Those are going to be 2 very, very big games when they come up on the schedule.
I understand why they like Vancouver, because Vancouver are scoring goals, and they have one of the
6
the
against
highest
Houston.
goal differentials in the Western Conference. So that makes sense to me. Before we leave, I think there is some sartorial commentary which we have to fit in at the very end here, Jamon.
Sartorial, there it is again.
We promised at the beginning of the year that we'd try to follow up on these discussions as often as we could. But here's what I noticed, Jamon. Here's what I noticed tonight that I hadn't noticed before. We'd seen this trend before, but I hadn't understood it before. So in the past, we've noticed that Luchi Gonzalez has a tendency of wearing a sweater, wearing a shirt in the color of the opposing team, which we thought was initially weird. At the beginning of the season, we thought it was weird that he was wearing gold against LAFC. We thought it was weird that he was wearing the opposing team's colors because he's the Quakes coach. Because usually we're used to seeing guys in team tracksuits on the touchline. And here's what I noticed
or purple
tonight that
sweaters.
I hadn't noticed before, or purple sweaters. What I hadn't noticed before, though, is twice it happened tonight that the Colorado Rapids saw Luchi Gonzalez wearing a darker color on the touchline. He was wearing like dark navy there,
like a navy blue, yeah.
And they passed it straight to him. They saw him on the touchline, and they passed the ball straight to him as if he were a player.
Killing their own great counterattack.
Now this makes sense to me.
He was wide open in his defense. He was wide open, Alex.
If you think about it, Jamon, it is an absolutely brilliant strategy because he is on the touchline. If you see him, as long as he stands right next to the touchline, he is always going to be confusing opposing players if he's wearing their colors. And I don't think there's any rule preventing this from happening. I know we had this conversation in the patron Slack. In the NBA, teams do sometimes get fined if they wear colors or jerseys of the opposing team courtside. That has happened in the NBA. I know some of this skullduggery does happen in the NBA because you have so many people courtside, but I've never seen it happen in soccer before. And I wonder if it is a coincidence or if it's something that Luchi Gonzalez is conscious of. And if he's conscious of, I really wonder whether this is something that he's willing to admit or if this is something that he needs to keep under the radar.
All right.
This is my Quakes Epicenter conspiracy theory.
So here's the ask, Alex. You need to go find those minutes from this game at least, right? And identify those. And I will see if we can go out on our account and be able to pull the video of these passes so that we can let the fans in the Slack judge for themselves as to whether Luchi is the one who caused them to pass the ball directly to him, or whether it was just bad passes on the part of the Colorado Rapids, killing promising attacks in transition.
I'm willing to go and do that legwork for the sake of the conspiracy theory. We can put together a mini docu-series or something of that ilk, Jamon, because I'm bought in on this conspiracy theory now, and I'd love to see where this takes us. And now I'm going to start watching other teams in Major League Soccer to see if this is a broader trend, something that's flown under the radar that we haven't noticed before.
So some people want us to ask in the next press conference, and you'll remember. So a quick story for those who were not watching the show back in the day. I did ask Matias Almeida about the purple sweater and whether it was bringing the team good luck or not. And it was very tongue in cheek. It was definitely asked as a joke. And I'll tell you, I was driving through the middle of nowhere in Portland, trying to get on the call just to be able to ask this question in the press conference. I wasn't on the show that night because I'm literally in the middle of nowhere. I'm barely even picking up a signal. I'm dropping the cell signal left and right. And I'm like, I got to hold on. I got to ask about the purple sweater. And this is before we started talking about it on the show. And I brought it up and he completely thought it was a serious question and went off about how we don't believe in luck and all that kind of stuff. And then totally continued to wear the purple sweater in every single game as they were getting good results. And later came back and said someone told him it was a joke. And you gave him a serious answer. And then he finally kind of came back and addressed it in a lighthearted way at a later time.
What you didn't understand is that was misdirection. He was intentionally misdirecting you so that you wouldn't catch on, so that you wouldn't break the streak of luck. I completely respect Matias Almeida for making that choice in the press conference, because if Mark is right, if it's on purpose, they need to keep their mouth shut. They can't go giving up the.
If you say it out loud, it stops being luck, right?
Exactly.
Okay, you cannot acknowledge that. So
appreciate everyone sticking around here for the hard-hitting coverage that we do at Quakes Epicenter.
We are 10 minutes over because we had to talk about that very, very important topic. But we hope everyone has a great week. Of course, we will be back to bring you coverage from the very next game for the San Jose Earthquakes. Let's take a quick look at the schedule. Next Saturday, it's a 7:30 home game against Philadelphia. Alex, will you be in the stadium?
I will be there, and I'll be looking forward to it.
Potentially also with maybe Phil and maybe Robert, and maybe we'll be able to bring you fully live show again from the stadium. I think that's always great when we get to do that. I like to be on the show, but honestly, when we get you three guys at the stadium, I honestly think that that's the best thing we can do for the fans, is to provide that coverage directly from the stadium. So we will see what we were able to do next week, but it'll be good to have you at least at the stadium. Alex, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm grateful to everyone for joining us tonight, for sticking with us through this MLS After Dark experience. And, I think the Earthquakes should be pushing for more. I think the lesson from this game is that I think the Earthquakes can take a few more risks, should be expecting more of themselves against teams at the bottom of the table, because we know they can kick it with teams like LAFC, Seattle Sounders. We know that they can go toe-to-toe next week with the Philadelphia Union, but they need to be putting away teams at the bottom of the table. They need to be getting 2 or 3 goals in games like this against teams that they should be putting away.
Right. And then remember, tomorrow, Cade and Nico Jakiris will be playing against Uruguay it's a quarterfinal game, right? So if they get through the quarterfinals, then they get to the semis, to the finals. That's the way this works, right? So I believe they're in the quarterfinals against Uruguay. So be sure to tune in for that. And maybe if they get to the final, we'll have to do maybe a Aftershock on the US U20 in a World Cup final with hopefully 2 Quakes on the field. That would be kind of fun.
2 or 3. We've seen Nico Shakiris, Kinkalo, and former Quake Diego Luna all on the field.
That's true. Former Quake Diego Luna.
3 Quakes Academy alumni.
To talk about for sure.
Yeah.
And particularly because we've said, hey, maybe the Quakes should be trying to get back Diego Luna. Might be fun to break down.
We've created the hype train. We need to keep it.
All right. So if they make it to the final, Alex and I will do everything we can to try to make ourselves available to be able to do a special version of the Aftershock for that post-game show. So for Alex, I'm Jamon. Everyone have a good night, have a good week, and we will talk to you and see you next Saturday at PayPal Park against Philadelphia. Have a good one.